What's going on, guys? Hopefully you had a good weekend. In this video, we're going to go over Iren stock. I'm going to show you the chart. I'm also going to go over their monthly mining update. It dropped before the weekend. I wasn't able to do a video on it, so we're going to do a video on that. We're also going to talk about how the Bitcoin ETFs ate up 2 months of the Bitcoin mining supply. 2 months worth of mined Bitcoin gone in a matter of a week. Also, just in the first week of June, the Bitcoin ETFs acquired as much Bitcoin they did in the whole month of May. The spot ETF buying isn't stopping. But let's get started, guys. If you get something useful out of this, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, check out the links down below, and let's look at Iren stock. This is going to be the first entire month that the halving is taking effect for the whole month. So let's look at these numbers. They mined 230 Bitcoin in May, currently at a 10 exahash operating. So to compare with CleanSpark, they're mining a little less than double. Their exahash is a little less than double, so Iren and CleanSpark are pretty close in line in terms of efficiency. I personally think both are pretty good choices. If you're looking at the rest of this cycle, one thing to keep in mind is Iren has ran a lot. It's ran over 100% in just 1 month, but we'll look at the chart in just a second. Now they do have plans for 20 exahash in the third quarter, 30 exahash in the fourth quarter, and they are actually planning on 40 exahash, but this is much later in time, likely after this cycle, so I wouldn't even think about that. Their AI services, they have 816 NVIDIA H100s. I believe that's what they had last update. And as for their data centers, they have 260 megawatts operating and 510 megawatts in 2024 by the end of 2024. The Childress phase 2 and 3 construction is on schedule. And as for their balance sheet, they're sitting on $322 million in cash, no debt. And if you guys are interested in their last earnings, I will leave a link down below for you to listen to it. It's about an hour long, but it is worth listening to. One thing with Iren is they have been growing their hash rate quite quickly. You'll see, obviously, as their hash rate grew, their renewable energy usage has grown too. They're now at 246 megawatts, whereas the month before they were at 220. So even with the halving taking rewards in half, they did mine more than half because of their increase in hash rate. And you'll see, obviously, since the halving has taken effect, you see an electricity cost spike per Bitcoin. The profit margin of the hardware has decreased in percentage, all due to the halving taking rewards in half. But still, even with the halving taking effect, their cost per Bitcoin in terms of electricity is about $35,000 per Bitcoin. Obviously, there's more to it than just simply the electricity cost. And looking at their expansion schedule, they also expect to be much more efficient too. They expect their joules per terahash to climb down, which is a good thing. And it even says here in the May operations, decrease in Bitcoin mined in May due to reduced block subsidy due to the halving, right? But this was partially offset by 14% increase in average operating hash rate. They have been growing their exahash quite quickly, and that has helped to offset the rewards being cut in half. Also, as for their 30 exahash growth plans, they secured the latest generation Bitmain S21 Pros. These have an efficiency of 15 joules per terahash, very good. At 30 exahash, when they get to 30 exahash, they expect their electricity cost per Bitcoin to be somewhere around 17,000 because of the increased efficiency. We'll see if that's the case. And they do plan on upgrading their existing miners across British Columbia and Texas. And they do have the miners secured to support a 40 exahash in the first half of 2025. I honestly wouldn't worry too much about that. By that point, we're pretty much at the tail end of the cycle. Before that point, I will already likely be packing my bags. Their AI is the same story as last month's mining update. Nothing really has changed there from what I see, at least. But look at the amount of power and land. They have 3,000 megawatts of power, and the land portfolio presents a significant opportunity. They can get this all set up. This will be one of the top Bitcoin miners. They are catching up to the others rather quickly. And one thing people complain about is Iren doesn't really hodl their Bitcoin. There's another reason I like having multiple Bitcoin miners for different reasons. I hold some Bitcoin miners because they're getting into AI, along with other things. Some focus on hodling, some have very efficient miners, some have little to no debt and have a huge Bitcoin balance or huge cash balance. Some Bitcoin miners are extremely attractive in terms of market cap to hash rate. But yeah, you can hold Bitcoin miners for different reasons. And honestly, I think some do complement each other. I honestly think there's a reason to have a CleanSpark and an Iren together in the same portfolio. You have access to CleanSpark, which hodls their Bitcoin, and you have access to Iren, which uses all this Bitcoin to further their growth. Iren has such a huge amount of land and power coming up soon to get them to 40 exahash. Power and land is key in this space. Now, looking at Iren stock before I make this a much longer video than it has to be, you can see that Iren since February of 2023 has been following this long-term pattern. We come up, we rip, we come up to this resistance line, and then we retrace. Sometimes we retrace all the way down to this bottom yellow line. Sometimes we retrace to the middle area. If you're looking at scooping Iren up, there's two different things you can do, or multiple things you can do, I guess, but one thing you can do is buy now, potentially anticipate some lower prices, because if you follow this pattern, you know, if it plays out, we are set to pull back at least to the middle line. It doesn't have to necessarily pull back all the way to this bottom line, but I would expect, based on history, based on what Iren has done since February of 2023, since over a year now, I would expect Iren to pull back a little bit unless it breaks out of this pattern. If it breaks out of this pattern, if Bitcoin perhaps creates new all-time highs, all bets are off. It probably won't retrace. It probably will break out of this and continue going parabolic. But I personally am of the belief that we should see a retracement unless Bitcoin breaks new all-time highs. I would expect Iren to at least retrace to the 8s. At that point, you could choose to buy some Iren based on the cycle. I think 8's a great deal. 10's still okay. I do think Iren will be higher in price from here. From this current price, Iren will be higher in price by the end of 2025, or by the end of the cycle in 2025, I should say. Is Iren gonna come all the way down to this, you know, to this bottom line pattern, to this 5s, 6? I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath for it. I do think, you know, if Iren does pull back into the 8s, that would be a great buying opportunity. You could, of course, DCA here. I think Iren's still an okay deal, but I do think there are better miners for the price out there right now because of how much Iren has run, because of where Iren is on the RSI. Every time the RSI has gotten here in the past since February of 2023, we have seen a big sizable correction after a run like this. History doesn't always repeat, but it tends to rhyme. I do believe our risk is to the downside. I do still like Iren as a company. I do still like Iren on the long term. I do still like Iren even for this cycle. At this price, I do think it's still an okay price. I do think it'll be higher in price by the peak of the cycle in 2025. It's up to you. Do you want to chase it like this, or do you want to wait for a pullback, or just avoid it and buy a different miner? Up to you in the end. Now, Bitcoin's still filling out its pattern. We're riding this purple line here that we have utilized for quite a long time. We have broken it, found it as resistance, and you saw a clear reaction on that break back over it. And you saw a reaction to the break under it. The market does respect this line. It reacts to this line at the very least. Maybe sometimes it doesn't respect it, but it does react to it. So, I do think we are going to see a test of this purple line if we don't see first a breakout of 72,000. Either we're going to break this upside, this resistance that has been a long-standing resistance, 72,000. If we can break that, we are going to test all-time highs at 74,000. You know, either we're going to break out of the 72, or we're going to come down and test the 50 MA, test, you know, 67 maybe 66 if we see a hard drop from here. I would expect somewhere around 67. We kind of use this as support. It continues kind of pushing us higher. We get that pressure and we just break out and go on to rally to new all-time highs for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still bullish. It is still over its 200 MA. It is still over a ascending 50 MA. They are both in the correct order. And I personally doubt we are going to see the 50 and the 200 flip until sometime in 2025. We are still going to continue to ride this golden cross throughout 2024, and we will not see a death cross until sometime in 2025. Last cycle, we saw a death cross in June of 2021. We went on to flip a golden cross, and then it was a short-lived rally, barely broke previous all-time highs, and Bitcoin pretty much crashed. This is the first time we've seen a cycle like this, where we kind of have a double top like this. Some people speculate it had to do with some shady things going on with FTX, them like selling against the market. Typically what we see, however, is we just ride our golden cross until pretty much towards the end of the cycle. I do expect something similar here in this cycle for Bitcoin, where maybe we get our first death cross sometime in late 2025. But yeah, I mean, make no mistake, Bitcoin is still bullish. Bitcoin is still in the middle half, you know, middle part of its bull cycle. And things might seem toppish on shorter time frames, but look at the monthly. There is not a single cycle where Bitcoin did not break over 90 on the RSI. How far did we get on the RSI? We got to 76 on the monthly. I do not believe the top is in. I do believe we are going to see much higher prices for Bitcoin, and the bull market is not over yet. And look at this, something I mentioned in the intro. Bitcoin ETF sucked up 2 months of Bitcoin mining supply in the first week of June. And in this first trading week of June, US Bitcoin ETFs acquired almost as much Bitcoin as they did in the entire month of May. The demand is still there. And inflows of approximately 1.83 billion in the beginning of June. These 11 ETFs bought 25,729 Bitcoin between June 3 and June 7th. Around 8 times more than the 3,150 new Bitcoin mined over that same period of time. Remember, the Bitcoin mined per day is only 450 Bitcoin. A lot of days we see a lot more buying pressure than 450 Bitcoin. The amount of Bitcoin acquired in the week alone was almost as much as the entire month of May. Almost. And is the biggest week of buying since mid-March when Bitcoin hit its current all-time high of 73,600. There is a little bit more to this article. I will leave it down below for you, but that's the gist of it. Tell me how you're feeling about stocks like Iren. Are you waiting for better prices? Are you just DCAing and kind of not worrying as much about the chart? Everybody's got different strategies. What miners have you been picking up? What miners do you see the best value in currently? And what altcoins have you been buying? Are you taking advantage of alts before altcoin season? Are you buying some of the meme stocks? Let me know what you guys are doing. How do you feel about Iren and its recent run? Do you think it has some juice left, or do you think we'll see some better prices from here? Thanks as always for watching, guys. I hope you had a good weekend. Hopefully you got your rest. Hopefully you're ready for another exciting week in the market. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.